Hey, welcome everyone to Global Entrepreneurship Week. We are super excited to have you join us. We have people from across the world joining in this special week celebration. For those of you who may not know, Global Entrepreneurship Week happens every year in November, usually the third week, and it's full of different programming and events. We usually have 35,000 events across 170 countries, engaging 10 million people in just this one week alone. So thank you so much for joining in. We have a special presentation today. We're going to share how to grow and accelerate your business processes with Notion, and one of our awesome guests, rockstar Notion aficionado and just master expert there. We have Adeleki Omitowoju. Going to share with us some of his insights and experiences with Notion, and more importantly, how to use it properly to grow and accelerate our businesses. Without further ado, Ade, welcome.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Stephen, for the kind introduction. You set the bar very high. And also, I need to get the link for your home goods. I love that picture in the background, man. Hey everybody, Ade Omituoju here with 1863 Ventures. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Global Entrepreneurship Week is special for many reasons, but I think especially given COVID and remote work, it's really a unique opportunity to come together and share ideas, connect with great folks, and frankly, have some sense of community. So thank you to Stephen and the rest of the planning committee for putting this on. So spoiler alert, we're not just going to talk about Notion. One of the things I think that is important, especially as we look at remote work, to acknowledge that we get tools thrown at us every single day. If you're like me, I'm always looking for that next thing, the new thing. I tend to download it, set up the account, and then, then what, right? So the goal is really to take a sequential approach to really kind of understand what success looks like, and some of the foundations of success as it relates to remote work. Then get into goal setting so that you really kind of understand and set the tone for how you want to operate your business, and then getting into some of the tools and techniques associated with Notion. While I'm presenting, we do have a live comment section. So go ahead and start posting your questions, and also if there are any thoughts or ideas about what you want to get out of this conversation. This will be less presentation and more interaction. So I'll go ahead and start. Okay. So remote work tools, right? So as we know, we are adjusting a lot to this new normal. A lot of us were kind of thrown into this concept of remote work. So a lot of it has been discovery. We chose Notion for several reasons, which I'll get into, but I think primarily we wanted to ensure that we had a solid basis for the management of information and the reduction of information silos, which I'll get into. So Ade, very, very proud Florida A&M University graduate, HBCU, did some work at IBM, enterprise sales, and then also was an equity and debt analyst at a private equity shop. Been with 1863 for almost 5 years, and my focus is strategy, content, and portfolio management. All right, so let's just get this out the way. This is what remote work feels like. And, I've got 2 kids, 3 and 6. So I'm on a schedule, generally 3 times a day. This is kind of what in between meetings looks like. You're cleaning up mess, you're figuring out, how to sign your 3-year-old into Zoom. And, there's just a lot that's going on outside of you having to manage your deliverables. So let's just, have that side relief that yes, everybody is experiencing similar challenges. And if you don't have kids, then make sure that you send flowers and just love to your colleagues with children. So let's start off with why remote work fails. we have Zoom, we have Slack, we have all these different tools, but it's not the tools that really gets us to a space of efficiency. It's really about our process, right? So there's really 4 elements that are important to take into consideration when you look at why remote work fails. So the team lacks vision and purpose, lack of accountability, ineffective processes, and information silos. So with vision and purpose, if you feel as if every day is, the next task, or you're only kind of looking day by day and incrementally, you may want to ask yourself, to what degree you've set a solid yearly and even quarterly, vision and goal for yourself and your broader team, because that's the quickest and easiest way to kind of litmus test. Are you ready for remote collaboration and the effective use of the tools? Also, if you have teams that you're managing, ask each person what the goal is for the year, what the mission is, and see if there's 100% consensus or some variability, and that kind of gives you some insight around how spot on or off you may be. Information silos is absolutely key, because as business owners, we can very much so, even if it's 3 people, information silos are actually easier to have happen, especially if somebody's running marketing, the other person is running operations, and maybe some other person is running strategy. So you have each one of those functional areas that all add up into organizational results. But sometimes, we may just be focused on our thing without really kind of understanding what the broader vision is. So if you're not already going through the process of setting your goals, MBA school, we called it Balanced Scorecard. The updated Google version is called OKRs, which I'll get into, but it's really how you take your vision for your company and then actually create business value through your business results. And everybody will get access to this presentation. So you don't need to screenshot all that kind of stuff. But essentially what we're saying is that over here, it's, where am I going and how do I measure success? Is it you want to improve your product or increase your leads or raise capital? And then what are the actual business results that you'll get from doing these things? And it's a different way of thinking about it, because it's not activity focused, it's not task focused, it's the big idea. So that helps you prioritize what's most important, so you don't get caught up in the minutia. And then you really understand in the middle, from a resources standpoint, how you bridge the gap between your goals and your business results. What are the initiatives that need to be undertaken? So a summation of different activities and tasks. And then what are some of the assumptions that are associated with that? So objective, again, description of goal that you want to achieve in the future. The key result is the metric associated with that. And then the initiative is essentially what will you do day 0 in order to achieve that. And it really helps you get into a space of goal level thinking, right? We're not over here, we're over here. The tasks are something that you do, right? So step 1, get up, cup of coffee, check email, right? Maybe I've got to do this document or the deliverable. But the deliverable is an incremental element of the broader thing of I want to get that large enterprise deal, right? So that way you're thinking strategically, but you're also looking ahead to better understand where risks are or even gaps are in terms of process. So to kind of break it down a little bit, and this is a way of looking at it. Every organization kind of uses its own form, but this is a generalized structure, right? So the ultimate objective is, yeah.
Quick question. Are you trying to share a screen right now?
Oh,
for the audience?
You know what? I am. Here we go. There it is. Thank you. Sorry about that. Can you see the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. All right. So from an ultimate objective, it's the reason why your company exists. Why do you wake up in the morning and deal with all the BS or the challenges in order to get to those small and large wins, right? And then you get to your company level objectives. This is something that you want to achieve in a year. And then again, what are the business results that you will be able to realize as part of meeting that objective. And then we get into the functional areas. And the reason why I'm focusing on this before we hop into Notion is because it goes back to the point of information silos. And information silos come from a lack of coordination and communication and socialization of information. So, working with Steven, I should know all the things that he's working on and where he needs help without having to ping him. So you want to centralize information so it's easy to not only understand, but also refer to, and it drives accountability. And the initiatives at the bottom level is the work required in order to drive that actual progress. So using SpaceX as an example, obviously amazing milestone with the Dragon rocket over the weekend, brought 4 astronauts up into the space station, right? When Elon Musk started the company, the ultimate objective was to make humankind interplanetary. That's why it exists, right? But in order to do that, they had to make rockets reusable. So it involved a lot of engineering, some sales, right? To get the contracts, right? So that's a different way of looking at the ultimate objective. So you don't focus on the actual minutia of the individual task, because it can also be overwhelming. And then finally, this is what you should have in terms of, however, if you choose to use Notion, which I'll get into, or any other task management platform. Each function within your business should have an overall objective, how you're measuring success, and then also what are the key results associated with that then ties into the ultimate reason why you exist. All right. So to recap, effective remote work combines effectual leadership, right? So division to value with effective communication to enable extreme ownership of tasks and deliverables. Using the phrase extreme ownership because it's not that I own this particular task, but I know that this is mission critical work to help the business thrive. This is mission critical work to make sure that we make our quarterly number, right? And so it helps drive that level of accountability, but also self-ownership, which in a remote space, when nobody's going to see us, if we take a nap in our bed, right, we know that that work is getting done. And it's not task focus, it's deliverable focus. Okay, so what is Notion? By now we probably all should have heard of Notion. I grew up in the days of Evernote. I was a huge Evernote fan. And liked it because it allowed me to manage a whole bunch of different things in one. But when Notion came, it came in the era of your Trellos and your Airtables and Google Docs, where the challenge was being able to bring all those things into a unified way. So I'll say with a caveat, like Notion's biggest strength is its flexibility, but it's also its biggest weakness, right? So it's important that you really understand why you would use a tool like Notion and how you would use it before just hopping in, setting up an account, and you're like, oh wow, like I need to figure out how this actually is going to help me in my business. So there's really 3 components of Notion in terms of what it does: documents, databases, and media and content. The databases piece is really powerful because it deals with the management of information. So they have a light version of a CRM. There's also trackers in terms of simple financial data. In terms of media and content, if you're doing a creative brief, you can put all of the elements up in there with some comments, right? So instead of using or relying on Google Docs for one piece and still have to, put it into a spreadsheet or something like that, it brings it all into one. So Notion's best for people and organizations that need to manage different kinds of data in a single place for easy access and collaboration. It's really good at managing various kinds of data in one place, but it's terrible at like robust data management. So I'm not going to do anything computational. I'm not going to do anything, forecasting based, right? So it is not all things to all people. Right? So here are a couple examples before we hop into the tool. And these are actually live applications that we've actually used before in our own business as well as with our founders. So core messaging. So if it's not something that you've worked on before, super key, especially given the fact that this is a digital driven world. So you can go through the process of interviewing your customers, actually managing that interview data, compiling that data into personas, identifying pain points and needs, and then distilling that into core messaging that actually resonates. So, you can do that all in one tool. Or email marketing, defining who your customer base is, developing your core messaging as per previous, sequencing your emails, and then sharing with the team for collaboration and input. Now, for the sequencing of the emails, this isn't something that's going to send and receive emails, but it's something that you can use to actually map out how you want your email sequences to look, so that then you can actually put them into whatever tool you would use. And then finally, social media, right? So defining your content pillar. So big idea. What are we talking about? Who in our segments actually care about this stuff? Confirming your core audience, right? So 35 to 45 women that live in the Midwest, right? Aggregating your social content, so everything from LinkedIn to Twitter to Instagram, putting it all in one place, and then actually creating a schedule for that. All right, so like me, probably thinking, okay, well, how does this actually apply? How does this work? So let me just hop into the demo real quick. And Stephen, I was on full screen, so are there any questions that have come up?
Yep. So I think when it comes to how to think about these objectives and this vision and goals, many entrepreneurs are kind of in this scurry to get money and revenue or figure out their product. I guess in that sense, have you seen any use case for is this like a project management? Is that what they're lacking, or how do they go? What are some good steps to kind of them take, for example, to
so great question. And especially if you're an early stage founder or you have a small team, the most valuable thing that you have is time, because time gives you space and place to be able to set a vision and execute on that. And and your efforts are diluted if you're focused on the minutia, right? So I've seen Notion be really powerful and just overall in terms of strategy. Setting that process, that plan. What does everything look like step to step, going from, all right, I have my new product release to I want to get 1,000 users, right? So I'm thinking about, okay, what is my core audience? What's my core value proposition? How am I communicating with them? What is the copy? What are the channels that I'm using in order to communicate with them? Who owns what? And then what are the incremental KPIs that we're going to be tracking to know that we're going to get to where we want to go? And you can do all of that in Notion, but what I've seen is that people may just want to jump in and just start to work. And then you get into this fractal of, okay, well, I have this document over here, or I have this over here. And so my copywriter is not able to immediately get, onboarded quickly to start doing the copy for the Instagram. Or I have a sales lead who's part-time, but I don't have all the assets, organized for them to be able to understand the product and then really understand how we're communicating with them. So if it's raising capital or it's growing revenue, it all starts off with what your plan and your strategy is, and then putting the systems in place and also automation where possible, so then you can focus more on that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know somebody, Flor mentioned, can I get more information on how to use the OKRs, or how would I go about, or how would they go about with OKRs?
Yeah, sure. And then, and also happy to send Stephen some documentation about OKRs. But it's just like if you go to law school. I didn't go, my wife went, but she told me it was the hardest year of her life, where they really have you think differently. It's a whole different logical framework, and it's the same thing with OKR. So it's not I want $100,000 of revenue this quarter. It's I need to generate $100,000 of revenue so that if I'm hitting 100,000 at ARR, then I can raise that next round. or I want to improve my NP or my Net Promoter Score, which is essentially measuring how likely somebody is to recommend your product, which is a great metric of, is that product delivering value? I want my NPS score to be no less than 75, or I want to grow it from 50 to 75. As a result of that, I know that my retention will go up, and if my retention goes up, then that means that my revenue stays healthy, right? And so it's a strategic management way of thinking, so that you don't get caught up in the, oh, well, I have to ship the product, or I have to make that Instagram post. It's all adding up to a business goal. And then also happy to send over some more information about that as well.
Got it. And you mentioned that this was similar, like KPIs is another term that's used for the same thing, or is that separate?
Yeah, so KPIs is a subset. You know, what you would use to actually measure measure where you are as a baseline, and then also where you're going. So that so we would call that a waypoint, right? So if I'm, I want to prioritize what matters most for me to measure, right? If it's a software company, I'm looking at net new business. I'm looking at renewals. I'm also looking at retention. And then, there's like some subsets of that, right? So NPS scores or general just engagement amount of time on there. But in order for me to survive as a company, then I need to do these things, right? But the KPIs in itself should be a subset, because you have like your financial KPIs, right? So my gross margins, my net days receivables, right? And that's not necessarily core to the big rocks or the big pieces. So KPIs are important to the degree that they're relevant to the big goals, but not to say that you don't want to focus on some of the other more operational things.
Got it. And I guess one more question, which actually leads in probably to the next piece, is any sources to get useful templates to adapt to my needs?
Yeah. So so Floor, would be helpful if you could put in a little bit more detail there as it relates to templates. Is it templates for Notion, or just templates in terms of just being able to, not have to do something from scratch, like a financial model? That'll be helpful. And while you're thinking about that, I'll actually hop in to Notion and actually create a database from scratch, so folks can actually see how it works. So, okay, and then I will actually share my screen this time. All right, cool. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, so this is a demo workspace that we created just for Global Entrepreneurship Week, right? So this is Notion. This isn't what you would see when you sign up, but I created this specifically for you all, so I can walk you through a couple of the examples that I put into the presentation. So the first thing you'll see is that everything is based in blocks. So you'll see that this is a block, this is a block, this is a block. If I wanted to, let's say, add a photo here, I can just add a random photo. If I wanted to tile this photo, I could tile the photo, right? And everything is flexible, which goes back to the strength and also weakness, because you can just be like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm starting a website from scratch, which it can actually feel like, right? But just to give you an idea about the mechanics behind it, that's what it is. You can also add different elements, like a page, which is a subset within this main page. There's different formatting elements, bulleting, numbering, quotes, dividers, right? So you can almost think about it. If you're comfortable with Medium, then a lot of these design elements have carried over. They also have integration with other really, really cool apps, but then also you can create databases. And I'll show you what the databases look like. And then you can embed Google Drive documents, tweets, Google Maps, right? So if this is an internal focusing or externally focusing thing, you have a lot of flexibility here. Also Loom, so you can embed Loom video recordings and even include Typeform. So let's just start off with, I'm reminding myself in this presentation to create a task list. So what I'm gonna do, used to the shortcuts, but if you go to the shortcuts, you do /, and then I want to do a page. Okay. So this automatically took me, so you see the breadcrumbs up top here. This took me to a page, and I'm gonna label tasks. I can't spell. I was always the first one to sit down during the spelling bee. Now you'll see here that I can create an empty page, or I can also use templates. This is where actually the question about templates Notion could potentially help. Now, Notion consistently adds really robust templates that are focused on education, like notes, or a personal CRM, right? Or there's even a light version of a CRM, right? Where you have the different classifications, like a Kanban. So how many leads, it'll do a sum, how many qualified, negotiation closure with all of the information here. But, as I said before, we don't know how to get there unless we set the roadmap for that. So I want to do a product roadmap, right? So I click on it. I'm kicking the tires a little bit. I see, all right, I see how this is organized. Check it out. All right, let's try it out. So this automatically gets added into this page. All right. Now, it includes some elements just so that you can kind of familiarize yourself with it, or you can just delete and start from scratch. But let's start off with the views. So they add in a lot of robust elements here. So I can look at it as a calendar. I can look at it based off of individual tasks, or I can look at it based off of epics. So they call epics what one may call your initiative. So what's a big thing that I'm doing over a span of time in order to get something done? I just want to kind of start off by status because I want to know what my engineering team is doing, or my marketing team, etc. Now, all of these elements in here are adjustable. You may recognize some of these things from Airtable, but they're called properties. And each property has its own characteristic to it. It could be a connection to another database. It could be a drop-down menu. It could be a multi-select, right? So it's obviously very, very flexible. I'm going to hop out of this and show you what one looks like in a more kind of refined way. But this is how you could go from 0 and then into Notion very, very quickly. What I would probably do if I were doing this, I would start just simplifying like what it is that I actually care about, right? So I may care about if it's a task, or if it's an overall initiative. I may care about if it's started or not. I don't really care what it's tied to, so maybe I'll just hide this property. And then sprint, I don't like sprints. I want to call it, let's see, I want to call it task number, right? And then I can actually rename all of these if I wanted to. And then priority. Maybe you need priority, maybe you don't. Maybe you need 2, maybe 3. And then timeline. So when does it actually due? I can also include a time for that. Okay. If I want to add, very easy. So okay. So then I can hop in here and be like, add Steven. Here are the okay. So in progress, I can add in a couple elements, right? Because we're focused on social, etc. And then that automatically tags Steven. So good luck, Steven. All right. So that's the 0 to something. Now, I'm going to give an example because this may be relevant to everybody. A drip email campaign. So if you're a B2B or you're talking to your customers, it's always good to think about email sequencing. But sometimes it can be difficult to really kind of map that out in terms of what it looks like. I created this custom database that actually allows us to select by channel, what the subject line is, what the sequence ID is, what the status is. So if I'm If I'm on, the copywriting team and I'm sending this over to the marketing lead, if it's, approved, etc. What business segments, right? So who's my audience with this? And then, what the call to action or button is, right? So if it's a toolkit I'm including, what stage of the funnel it's at, right? So this is a little bit more tailored. It's the same concept in terms of it being a database, but we've tailored it to you for email drip marketing campaign. So let's start off with 1A, right? Because we're doing some A/B testing. So hi, first name, I'm founder of this company. Want to let you know some of the things that we're doing, and this is the actual text that's in here. So I can say, hey, that's Steven. Check out draft 2, right? He gets it, of course, he tears it apart, makes it better, and then we go from there, right? And then this can be shipped over to marketing, and marketing can actually upload this into HubSpot or whatever they would want to use. And once it's in use, right? Okay. And I can change, again, all these header names really, really easily. Social strategy, another example. So keep in mind that, your workspace is your workspace. So I like to have pages with icons because I'm a visual learner, and I like to have it nice, clean, and simple. Some people like to have imagery, etc. It's completely up to you. It's your workspace. I want to do a page for social strategy, right? So now I'm hopping over to my social media marketing team, and we have our social media goals as well as our content marketing goals, right? I have all my assets, right, that are linked here: LinkedIn, Medium, YouTube, and then, surprise, surprise, I have my own task list embedded in here specific for social media. And the reason for this is that we may have a whole bunch of different content ideas that we want to spin up, but then have the team provide feedback on to then get approval. So let's create something. All right. So how COVID impacts remote work. The type, we're just going to pull an article from the website, right? So subject line, COVID is wild. Here is how to survive. Okay. Now, target customer, who's this going to? This is our general network or general audience. Goal, you can put a goal in there if you would like. Incentivize them to sign up for a demo. Who the owner is. If there's a link associated with it, so I can just pop in a website link here, right? So I can just go over here, and I'm a huge Bloomberg fan, so I'm just going to pop in here, Bloomberg. So that means that when my marketing team or my social team gets this card, they're just going to hop in, know exactly where to go. And then I'm going to say it's due Friday. So Steven, I'm going to need you to give me your blessings on this. And then good. All right. So Steven has taken a look at it. I appreciate you, Steven. I love that you love it. So now we're in approval, waiting approval. So now we're popping into the calendar. And here's how you see the additional power of Notion to create linked databases. So now that it's approved, I'm going to add it to my social calendar. So here, what I'm going to do is actually take that same title. We're going to post it up on Friday. And then you see record link. Boom, searched it right here. So it's mapped. Maybe I'm putting 200 bucks behind it. It's going to be an article, and the post time, I'm an early riser because of my kids, and we're going to send this out at 6:30 a.m. Boom. All right. Lo and behold, come here. Awesome. Waking up, loading it in there. Sunday night, it's all loaded, ready to go with the actual calendar. So let me stop there before Whoa, that is infinity. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I know here how to connect the value proposition, business model canvas, the lean Kanban, and the OKR, and what are the steps using all these tools and how to. I guess it might be saying translating it into Notion. So, is there a way to kind of consolidate it all in Notion, or?
Yeah. So I think the lean canvas is a good starting point to really validate, what you're doing and is there a market for that and what the resources are available for that. So I am selling masks. I'm targeting the Southeast region because they're a hotspot. Should be wearing masks. And I'm going to primarily sell on Instagram, and I'm going to use Shopify. Okay, cool. I've done my research. I see COVID numbers are crazy. I see that there's not a lot of competition down there. So my lean canvas has said, okay, you have all the ingredients of being able to at least figure this business out, right? Okay, so the lean canvas and then goes into, okay, how am I actually bringing my product to market? That kind of goes back to the different functional areas, and it depends on how you want to actually structure that information for either yourself or your team. So to use an example, one thing that I will do is show you some of our work at 1863. Sorry about the Infinity Stone. All right, so here's literally our work at 1863. So we are segmenting our things based off of initiatives that are big things that involve a whole bunch of different activities. I'm sorry, programs that have a whole bunch of initiatives in order to get it done. So we're launching a program called 3Rs, where there's cash as well as online learning in order to help you grow your business and navigate COVID. We're doing in partnership with Capital One. So it's a very big and complex thing. Our ultimate goal is for 70% of the companies that are participating in this to survive. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major components of it. We launched the program. We're doing an event series. There's coaching associated with it. There's funding associated with it, and there's reporting. So these big things, right? Getting back to Lean Canvas, I know what I'm doing. Now I've actually got to put it into action. So you can segment them into initiatives, but make sure that the overarching structure is there so that somebody can come in, boom, and then understand at a high level everything associated with it. So what's the value of the program, right? You get 5,000, XYZ. What's the program overview? So the program overview here is so that, if we're posting it on social or we're putting it into a one-pager, we at least have the structures of the copy in order to communicate. Then there's some social media assets that we're going to lead with. Quick link to media and press. Now let's get into the actual program launch process. So this is an initiative tied to a program. We finished it, so we launched it. But now we're talking about the process and the flow. So I'm coming to the landing page after it's announced. I sign up for the program. Then you get an email, right? And then you're asked to submit an application. And then we go through review, and then you get access to all the resources after you finish it, right? So it's step by step by step by step. And we chose to do it this way, just so it's easy to hop in between the big idea as well as where we're actually going. And then we have the individual tasks, right? So we're doing a presentation this week. We have to get some of the data mapped, right? So we chose to structure Notion like this because of the way that our team manages and consumes information. You may do it something completely different, but I would say that is a way to look at how you would map your initial go-to-market, right, which will be driven by your lean canvas with the OKRs. So here's the program. 70% survival rate is the why we're doing this. and then what are the individual components of making that OKR actually happen.
Nice. And we have a more technical question here is, in Notion, they have, databases, they have libraries. So as you create pages and you add libraries into them, they're not always connected. So if you wanted to interconnect things, what is the best, something to keep in mind as you're creating all these libraries?
Yeah, so I always like to keep the Notion page clean and free of fractals. And the thing I say about fractals is like, here, I'll show you, and I'll give you an example of a Notion fractal. So I could create a page, then I could create another page. Right, it can literally go on forever. And to your point, that is how you can very quickly and easily just get lost. That's where the linked database component is super, super helpful. And I'll use an example. So this is our 1863 space. We have a lot of content. So one of the things that's super important for us is making sure that we have a hold of all of our different assets. So we start off with, for instance, what are the things that we're teaching, right? Now that's a subset, but let's say we're for the 3 R's program. What are we teaching? So we're teaching about customer development. I have a link to the presentation. I know that it's the second thing that we're going to show, but then there's a template, right? Now there's a linked database for the template, which is my content library. So the reason why I'm separating those two is because my content library is literally everything that 1863 has produced or has indexed, both from an internal things that we've done and third party ever, right? And so the reason why we have it in this one place is that I know what it is, I know who created it, and then I also know what topic it's related to. So if I ever wanted to spin up, a couple sessions for Global Entrepreneurship Week, I can show you how I would do that in literally 5 seconds. I would go to my content matrix. I say, okay, cool. I want to talk about OKRs. Great. So I know what the deliverables would be if it's a template. I know the description of it. And then I literally just send over to Steven that presentation. So that's just an example of how a linked database, without going into the different subsets, you have your main page and then each of your linked databases, that keeps you organized. You're on mute.
Oh, yep. So time for one more question, and we're so grateful for the time you're giving us, Ade. I know that community members want to bring in a Notion meetup. So we're looking to launch that in 2021. But for a meetup, what could be useful? I mean, you as a Notion user, what are some things that would be valuable for those meetups to have? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I would say sharing templates, honestly. I mean, I think the power of Notion comes from being able to share templates in structure that have already been done. I think the templates and tools and the existing Notion is helpful, but they can also more so lean towards like engineering or things that may not necessarily apply to you. So meetups may be focused on like, hey, I created this template. Just use an example of how to manage like my child's schedule with all the Zoom links and supplementary content, right? Like, yeah, I would love to have that. And so I think the meetup should be focused on applying. See, Flor. I think meetup should be focused on actionable and applicable templates that actually get business results, right? So I've used this and it's helped me do XYZ, or I found this template and then I reworked it and here were the results of it. And then you can share Notion templates and actually allow people to copy them into their own databases.
Awesome. Well, no, that's great. And for anybody that's interested, be on the lookout for that launching in 2021, or send us an email to connect you with some of the organizers. And if you want to organize, then great. We'd love to help. So definitely send us an email so that we can get this rolling. Awesome. But I know we're at time, Ade. We really appreciate your time. Any parting words for the community, I guess?
Yeah, just take everything one day at a time. These are unprecedented times, and I think it's super important to just every day get one thing done and celebrate that win, and don't beat yourself up if the day is a wash. Like, it's very easy to get down with all the negativity that's going on, but if you're fortunate enough to have some of the basics, then you yourself are doing better than a vast majority of people. So be grateful, take things a day at a time, celebrate the small wins, but also make sure that you take time to be introspective and plan out based off of what's happened this year, right? So I think that is what will keep us in this marathon, because it is going to be a long journey, but there's ample opportunity for us to make the best of this very abnormal timing.
Awesome. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in for this great session on Notion and objectives and vision, most importantly, and how to leverage this properly for your side hustle, your startup, your small business, and so on. Many other events happening during Global Entrepreneurship Week, so make sure to check the link for other sessions and register for any ones that may seem useful. And yeah, hopefully see you at another session. So thank you all. Thank you, Ade, so much, and happy GW to everyone.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Take care.